Welcome back to another episode of Sal and Pals Go to the Movies. This is another Throwback Thursday review. I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hi, everyone.
And today we're going to be reviewing the movie The Arrival from 1996 with Charlie Sheen. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. So this movie was recommended by Rodrigo. So Rodrigo, here's our honest review. Zane, an astronomer, discovers the intelligent alien life, but the aliens are keeping a deadly secret and will do anything to stop Zane from learning it. So this movie is not to be confused with the recent one, Arrival. This is The Arrival from 1996, and it's with Charlie Sheen. So let's just get into it, and I'm going to throw it to Touly and ask Touly to give us his review.
So this was my first time watching the film, and I thought it was alright. I think for the most part, I was engaged because of Charlie Sheen's character, Zane, because he was this paranoid scientist who was obsessed with finding extraterrestrial beings out there in the universe after coming across some odd signals from his workplace, which pretty much led up to the plot of the story, where his boss and many individuals who he interacted with throughout the film didn't either believe him or were trying to silence him. And through that, we saw how Zane became very invested in trying to get the word out that perhaps aliens do exist. And when he actually found proof that they do exist, he was being hunted down by the aliens themselves, who were disguised as humans. And so it was pretty much a struggle of him trying to stay alive while trying to find a way to make the world know that aliens exist. And again, spoiler alert, he was able to do that through a recording of his boss who worked at NASA, who admitted that the aliens were trying to take over the world by emitting greenhouse gas from like power plants that they were at. They wanted to raise the temperature of Earth to a point where it was inhabitable by humans, and of course make it habitable for them themselves, because they apparently like to live in environments where it's warmer than what humans are naturally are accustomed to. The boss, of course, Zane's boss, came to admit that he was an alien. But of course, he wasn't aware that Zane was recording the discussion or the conversation. So Zane was going to use this as proof to tell the world. He was going to broadcast it to the world. And so this led to the Zane's boss, who's, again, now we know as an alien, trying to put in even more effort to silence Zane. And unfortunately, through Zane's meetup with like other characters throughout the film, like this other scientist who he met in Mexico, I think her name was Ilana, if I'm not mistaken, she ended up dying because Zane revealed to her that this one individual who he had come across in Mexico sort of looks like his boss from NASA. And so he reasoned that they were using some sort of technology to perhaps make them look like human figures. And of course, this was proven when Zane infiltrated one of their power plants. I think the one thing that I kind of latched onto, or I say the two things I latched on mostly throughout this film, was Zane's relationship with his girlfriend and the next door neighbor kid, because that pretty much led up to the big twist, in my opinion, at the end of the film, where the relationship between him and the girlfriend was not very stable. Zane had like trust issues with her, and she kept on bringing it up too. You might have probably have got the feeling where she might be leaving him at any point because, you know, of the way he kept on treating her, the way he talked to her, the way that, in a way, in a sense too, like didn't respect her because he was always questioning their relationship, and she kept on bringing up these trust issues. However, when you came to know the next door neighbor, the boy's name was Kiki, like they seemed to like have hit off pretty well from the start. So they developed that relationship without there being any struggle. So it felt like that relationship was genuine. There was nothing for you to question there. But it turns out that Kiki was an alien at the end. It wasn't the girlfriend who Charlie Sheen's character Zane questioned as to how the aliens who were following him initially, how they came to know where he was, because he blamed it on the girlfriend initially for having led the aliens to their whereabouts. So that was a good twist. I think that was the thing that I enjoyed most. Other than that, there were a lot of moments that I questioned in terms of like plausibility. Things like the black hole device that was used to destroy or suck in whatever it is that they needed to get destroyed in the area as proof of like Zane's work and stuff, and that was done at his house. Particularly, it was in his garage area. It was also used in the final scene where it destroyed the building that Zane and his girlfriend were in. I think they were trying to broadcast the recording that Zane had gotten earlier, and so the aliens arrived with one of those black hole devices again in order to destroy the area to prevent Zane from doing what he wanted to do. But at the same time, for the sheer force that they were trying to depict in terms of how strong, the black hole suction was, I felt it was not very believable because, I feel like something like that we should have sucked more than just the interior of the building that these devices were set in. Like the entire like facility or the garage that it was first set off in at Zane's place, it should have been sucked in my opinion. Like, to me, so that's what I would have envisioned happening, but instead it didn't. So that threw me off. Another thing that threw me off, and I'm pretty sure Sal's going to mention more of these too. I'm just mentioning a couple here to give you guys an idea. The other is when Zane infiltrated the plant where the aliens were in Mexico, and despite the technology that that was shown, that like the aliens using this device that enabled them to disguise as humans, like they pretty much get transformed into a human per se. For them to have technology like this and not have like some sort of security system to just monitor the area in case somebody did break into the power plant. To me, that was not very alien-like. I imagine aliens to be of a higher intelligence because of these technology. But for them to not even care about these sort of simplistic measures to protect themselves from outsiders, again, the idea of believability made me a little disengaged from the film. So I think overall, even though I feel like this film was being produced on a more serious tone, I think it had a little comedy into it, whether intentional or not, and that's how I watched the film. Let alone, I guess maybe it didn't help, or maybe it did help, depending on how you look at it. That is, because of Charlie Sheen's character. Because I personally know him as a comedian, so for him to star in a serious role like that, I always had that image of him being sort of like a comedy relief anyway. I never saw him as a serious scientist. It was just him like walking around and coming across things and being lucky in a sense, and you see his character, just his personality shine or resonate from who he is as an actor or as a person. Particularly, again, the aspect of him being sort of, no pun intended, but insane. That kind of resonated there in the film, and that just pretty much led me to enjoy the film in terms of it being sort of a comedy as well. So not treating it too seriously. But it was an okay watch. I probably wouldn't watch it again, but for the first time around, I was like, despite some of the blunders that I came across, it was all right.
Okay, well, I'm going to start off with saying that the story it was a decent story that they did not attack properly and portrayed it in the film. The story itself has been done before. After this movie came out, we can attribute it to Contact. I think it was released the following year. Contact is the same version of this movie, but without the hostile aliens. Somebody stumbled upon a signal in space. When basically that is happening, we are always currently listening for sounds or messages coming through space. In the search of alien life or higher beings or higher intelligence out there. That's totally believable. NASA has always done that. So let's talk about Sane's character. And the name Sane, it's a pun. He starts off being sane, and then at the end of the movie, he starts becoming insane, according to the other people around him. The character, not that believable as a scientist. They try to force us that he was a real scientist since the beginning, with the panning of the room and seeing all the books, and especially the one that stood out by Carl Sagan, who's a real scientist and everybody knows. So that was trying to like make us shove it down our throat that he was a true scientist, and he knew what he was talking about. I really enjoyed the chemistry between the girlfriend and him. They had that little struggle. They were always, kind of going back and forth. She was complaining that he's not always there with her, and vice versa, which led to the ending scene, which was, like Touly said, it was really well played. It actually convinced me that she was an alien, and then the twist turns out that she was not the alien, and then the Kiki, the neighbor, who we did never thought that he could be an alien, turned out to be an alien. And then let's go back to Kiki. Since he was at the beginning, he had so many chances to corrupt or basically sabotage Sane's work or even kill him at any time of the movie, but they opted not to do it. So that basically is -1 for the aliens. They did really stupid things in the movie. Let's talk about the aliens. Okay, when I started seeing the movie, I was like, oh, these aliens, because they get cut and then you see like vapors or something coming out. I'm like, aliens don't bleed. That's kind of bizarre. But then I was like, hey, if Charlie Sheen's in there, tiger blood, maybe they do bleed gas. Some blunders in the movie, like that I couldn't stand until he referenced some of them. Let's go back to the end of the movie, or right before the end, when Sane is infiltrating the plant. We see the cab driver go up to the plant at night and then scan his face, and then he reveals that he's an alien. So wow, that's when we get all like creeped out, and then we see the antenna rise up and everything. How does Sane get in the trunk of the Volkswagen Beetle if the trunk's in the front and the engine's in the back, but the cab driver is literally like 3 feet away from the actual car? Like, that didn't make sense to me. And then the other thing is that as he's going down the elevator shaft to the actual secret base that's underneath, he's seeing all these aliens and he's surprised and shocked. Then he sees, which I can only attribute to a control panel, and there's a sphere floating in like what I would say liquid. Or what does a sane scientist do? He touches it. Yeah, you're not supposed to touch stuff you don't know what it is. Even if you're not a scientist, it's common sense. Don't touch shit, So this whole thing from that point on just became unbelievable, that he stumbled upon these. He never discovered them. He never concluded that something was going on and, I'm going to go investigate. No, he was just there staring at the power plant when he started sketching a satellite, and all of a sudden the satellite comes out from the ground. Another thing, minus a point for the aliens. Why not completely put the satellite under the ground so it doesn't bring suspicions? No, they decided just let it stick out a little bit. It's okay. No, that's a really bad thing to do. I would have loved it if Sane would have basically investigated, found information, found that people in the village were disappearing or something, and this would actually point towards the power plant, and he goes in there with actual evidence, and then he discovers it's a secret base for the aliens, and that's where the sound is coming from and the signal. On top of that, why is he always walking around with his headset on, the Walkman? If you're trying to sneak into a base, don't wear stuff on your ears, because you won't listen to your surroundings. I know what they were going for, that he was dedicated to listening to the sound and everything, but come on, really? All the time? There's other stuff that I can complain about in the movie. Charlie Sheen was there, and I watched it for Charlie Sheen, which actually his character went from being sane in the beginning to insane at the end, kind of thing. So it kind of showed Charlie Sheen's character in real life transitioning. The only thing that was missing was him ever saying winning, tiger blood, or any of those, famous quotes that he said. The scene that I really enjoyed was the scorpion scene. It was full of suspense when the scientist was in her room or about to get into her room, and somebody planted scorpions in her hotel room. That scene, to me, the suspense it was building up to was like really well done. It reminded me of Hitchcock's artistic form of showing suspense. The only thing I didn't like was how she reacted to the bite. They could have done it better. That's my only critique. The ending scene, I enjoyed just the conversation between Zane and his girlfriend, going back and forth, that he didn't know if he could trust her. But the whole way that they ended the movie by him talking to Kiki and saying, like, you go back and you tell your people that I know what they did and I'm going to broadcast it and everything, that really didn't sit well with me. Other than anything, we saw that at the power plant, the aliens had laser guns, or ray guns, if you want to call it that. But I never saw them use it on Charlie Sheen's character, or at least try to shoot him down and wound him. The only thing I saw was that little sphere that Touly brought up, the one that created like a black hole. And the whole essence of a black hole that only sucks things inside a structure but does not collapse the structure. But at the end of the movie, they use the same thing, but it does collapse the structure. Didn't really sit well with me. It's an idea that I had when I was watching the movie that would sit well with me was if I would go back and edit something, I would add a little twist where Zane's girlfriend would actually turn out to be an alien. In my idea, at the same time, is one alien playing the boss and his girlfriend. So at the end, Charlie Sheen, feels that he's betrayed and everybody around him is aliens and they're in on it. And he's the only person who's trying to uncover the truth, kind of thing. So it breaks him down and he does become insane, and then it leads him to be uncreditable. For me, it would have been sit well because we could have related this movie to the beginning of InfoWars. So I think it would have been like a really cliche way of ending it. But the way they did it, I enjoyed it. And then just so everybody out there understands that this movie came out in 1996 and it's the prequel to Arrival 2, which is a direct-to-video film, which is the sequel to this movie with Charlie Sheen. Just saying that it's direct to video, you can understand that it's not really that good. But if you really enjoyed this movie, if you saw it, if you want to give it another chance, seek out Arrival 2 from 1998 and see what you get out of it. In spoilers, in this movie, the Arrival 2, we start off by finding out that Charlie Sheen's character, Zane, has been found dead, so somebody else carries a torch and tries to unravel the secret or the truth behind the aliens trying to take over the Earth. So with that, let's wrap this up and give it our final grade. Touly?
I would give the film a 5 out of 10. Again, with reasons already been provided. It's pretty much what the film boiled down to me was. And you've already alluded to it. It's pretty much a straight line in terms of Charlie Sheen's character's progression throughout the film. He didn't have to go through a lot of struggle, per se. Yes, he did come across like his quote-unquote boss and the power plant and the aliens who were trying to kill him. But there weren't any left or right turns he had to make in order to make his character struggle in the way that you would expect in these sort of alien films, where, how you said too, Sal, where you would expect maybe the person who had come across these aliens to become at some point even more paranoid, or to the point where they start questioning whether or not what they saw was real or not. I never got that feeling from Zane's, I never got that feeling from Charlie Sheen's character, and that's something I would have liked to see to make the story a little more in-depth in terms of like character development. And you used the example of maybe using the girlfriend as a mean to get to that point. To me, as long as they do it in some sort of fashion, that I would have been okay with that. But it never got to that point. For like an alien film, it didn't quite hit the mark, so I had to give it a rather low score. Again, the relationship that Zane had with his girlfriend and the next door neighbor kid, that pretty much won me over like for the film. That's the only reason I am giving this film as high as a score that I wouldn't normally give to a film that has so many questionable things happening throughout the film. But at least they set that up like from the beginning of the film, and it kind of played out and it led to something at the end. So for them to follow up on that, I at least appreciated that. So yeah, 5 out of 10. That's my score.
Okay, well, my score is going to be a 6 out of 10. And here's the reason. I believe this story, or the story for the movie, has potential to be a remake. in modern times. The only thing I would change would be the character saying his the way he discovers stuff. Also, I would keep the chemistry between him and his girlfriend. I would make the aliens a little more smarter than they are, and the whole way that they're going to make Sane's character be insane or conscious that he couldn't maybe he couldn't trust everybody around him, and maybe seclude himself and discover the secrets a little further. At the same time, this would actually play good at this time because there's a lot of talk about global warming and stuff. So the fact of them talking about terraforming and the idea that we are trying to go to Mars and terraform Mars, according to NASA and also Elon Musk, he's really set on going to Mars. I think this would make a great movie to reboot and make a remake. That's why I give it a 6 out of 10. The only thing is that it does have a lot of issues with it, a lot of rewrites that needs to be done, but I gave it an extra point just for that because I think it does have potential to be a reboot. So that does it for this Throwback Thursday review of The Arrival. Join us next time when we review Iron Man in honor of Stan Lee. Social media is down in the description, and hit us up if you have any questions. And remember, keep watching movies.